Hi, everyone. I hope you find this presentation informative, and I hope I can answer some of your questions as far as how we can use IXL in our classrooms and what we are doing as a district. I think one of the biggest questions I've been asked is where I find the growth for my students or for my class. And it's a really great question. The best place to find your students' growth and progress would be the progress and growth chart. You can find that in analytics under the progress tab and then progress and growth. And it's a really easy sheet that pops up and it immediately tells you the growth that your learners have had since they benchmarked back in August or September. For updating benchmarks and the diagnostic scores and knowing when students have answered enough questions, first of all, these scores will only be updated as students step into the arena. For me, I have my kids step in on a Friday and they work until they get the dot screen, that's what we call it. That says that their levels are up to date. So there's typically a screen saying their levels are up to date. Typically, it takes about 10 minutes per subject. And IXL recommends that you do each subject for 10 minutes a week. When you look at the diagnostic scores or the benchmark scores, to know whether the levels are up to date or not, if a student hasn't shown you that screen, there is a pinpointed level. And what that means is there's one specific number. So if there's a range, like maybe say 320 to 410, that means that student just hasn't pinpointed their level yet. So they're not done updating their assessment. So they would need to keep going until there was just one score. When you are looking to find what students have worked on and which assignments have been completed by each of your learners, you can use the score grid. You can find that in analytics under the scores and just click on score grid. It's a really nice chart that breaks down by student and shows you exactly what they've worked on and the skill that they have earned. The other way to do it is if you're assigning a skill plan, you can click right on view report to show all the skills practiced and those scores. When you assign work to specific students and you want to find their progress and how they're doing, again, the score grid is your friend. That's in analytics under scores, score grid. The other way that you can access it is through learning in the recommendations wall. You can click on each individual student and see exactly what work has been assigned to them and what they have worked on. You can also look next to where it says goal for completion. If you click on the ribbon that shows any skill that has been done to proficiency, which is that SMART score of 80, and then the medal represents anything that has been mastered already. So great tools to help find where your students are working on and whether they've mastered it or just at proficient. So just a real quick explanation for scores. If a student has a score of 360, it means that they're 60% proficient at the third grade level. So, the grade level being third grade, that is what grade level they're instructionally working at. And then again, how proficient they are, or what month proficient they are. Either way, they both represent the same thing. And this is the number that you want to use to monitor for growth. So if they pinpointed in August or September at 360, you want to be checking back and make sure that number is increasing to show their progress and growth. For progress and growth, I suggest printing out their beginning of the year benchmark scores. I know some of you have really large rosters or class sizes, so that might not make the most sense for you. But I have found just being able to print it out has been a really quick reference for me. I know IXL has a ton of tabs, so sometimes it can get confusing when you're trying to figure out, well, where's this score grid at, or where is progress and growth? So for me, I just print it out and keep it in a binder. And then every month, I might print out a new one, or maybe you want to do it every marking period, or even just when we benchmark, like those 3 times a year. But I do suggest keeping those scores somewhere just so you have a quick reference point of where your students have started at in order to figure out, their growth from the year. You can print it out or you can write their scores down, whatever method works for you. Um, Going back into analytics in the progress section, progress and growth, I just find this chart to be so informative and easy to use because it just tells you right away how much growth has been made for your students in math, science, and English language arts. It's a great snapshot um, in the student summary. That's another great resource that we have that again tells us what each student has been working on in their progress. So when students are working on skills, whether you're using the IXL live classroom or Go Guardian to keep track of what your students are doing, if you're looking at their skills and you're saying, okay, well, there's letters by it, there's numbers by it, some have letters, some have numbers, really that has come down to a teacher preference. If you have students who are working below grade level and you don't want them to know that, then I have spoken with some teachers who are hiding the grade level so that it's just a bunch of letters. Other teachers, it doesn't, they don't care whether students know what level they're on, so they just leave the numbers. So there is a conversion sheet for us. If you go into your settings, under teacher settings, you'll see find hide grade levels. And you can either enable it or not enable it. That's up to you. But there is a conversion sheet available to us so that you can kind of convert between letters and numbers. Um, for me, I have found that it's easier just to leave it unhidden. But again, it's back down to teacher preference. When we're assigning assignments to kids, when you're looking at your skills, then to the side of it, there's always this star. And if you hover over the star, this will prompt a pop-up. And from there, you can star each individual class or individual student that you want that assignment to go to. Just a friendly reminder that if you click on all students, any student you encounter throughout the day, including your homeroom students, would then be assigned that assignment. So just make sure you're clicking on that specific class or student when you're assigning skills. One of the really neat things about IXL is that it offers us group jams. And if you haven't tried a group jam yet, I encourage you to try it. There are a couple of different ways that you can use group jam. Personally, for me, I've used it as bell ringers. I've used it as a quick review to the start of my class. For instance, if you're covering a topic like for me, integers, I've used it as a review to start my class on what we've done the previous day. You can make it fun. You can say, okay, you're going to get a hurricane dollar or whatever amount you decide for the person who gets the most correct. And what I like most about group jams, especially if you are doing it in front of your whole group, is it's kind of anonymous and you get the personalized feedback in a notification in your notification center where you can see individually who got which questions right or wrong, which questions had the most incorrect responses for, and you can kind of troubleshoot from there. But as far as like the whole group is concerned, they're not seeing who's getting it right or wrong. They know somebody might be getting it wrong or might be getting it right, but they don't know who, which is really neat about a group jam. Your group jam can be based on something that you're working on right now. Again, falling back on integers because that's what I'm working on now. I could just pull in the students because I want to review integers with them, or something that we've already done in class, but they're still struggling with, and I can invite them to a group jam and troubleshoot right from there. And I don't have to come up with the questions. IXL does a really great job of doing that. You can do group jams based on uh, the individual trouble spots, whether it's for a group of kids, maybe it's winter ELT time, and you just want to know, okay, how can I help the most number of students at once? You can go into student trouble spots, or even just trouble spots in general, and that's in analytics under trouble spots. And you can click on trouble spots, and you're going to get a list of trouble areas for your students. And they do a great job of saying, here, you can help 3 students at once, 2 students at once. And you can pick that and invite those individual students to a group jam and just work with them. Or you could say, you know what, I want to start meeting with each of my students individually and helping them with what they're struggling with. So again, you can go to analytics, trouble spots, student trouble spots, and pick your student and find what they're struggling with and just work on each of those things with the student in a group jam. So group jam is just a really neat way you can help kids, small group, whole group, individually, based on their individual needs or group needs. Um, so, and in my experience, the kids are really enjoying group jams. So that's just something else that IXL offers that's really neat and a really great instructional tool that you can explore in your classrooms. The other neat thing about group jams is you control how many questions you do. So if you wanted to do this as a bell ringer, maybe you only have 3 questions, or maybe you just want to do 1 question, or you could do 10 if you were doing this as a practice or just a review before you move on to the next skill or lesson for the day. You could do 10 problems on what they've already learned to get them ready. So again, Group Jam is a really neat instructional tool that can be used in a variety of ways, both in your classes or even during WIN and ELT. When you're going into your data review meetings, or you're just trying to find those students who might be falling through the cracks, there are 3 really great forms to kind of look at. They're the progress and growth sheet that you've heard me talk about a couple of times. The student summary is a really great snapshot of what the learners are doing, what their progress is, what skills they've been working on. And then there's a trouble spots. Trouble spots can be found in analytics. I like the trouble spot um, sheet because it will group it by how I can help a bunch of students at the same time. And from there, I can use a group jam. Group jams are really great because I can bring in a couple of students who are all struggling with the same concept and just run a mini small group on that. This is great for WIN or for ELT time. Again, it's just helping you make those small groups to help benefit your students a little bit more. There are a few new things that IXL just came out with in the last couple of weeks. When students log into IXL, they can now remove skills that they are proficient at. So that's that SMART score of 80. And also ones that they have mastered, which again, they have a SMART score of 100. Now they can also select a teacher to see what has been assigned to them from that specific teacher, which makes it really easy. If you're in math class and you want them to work on from your teacher assignments, then they can just click on their um, in their recommendation wall. Then they can go and click on each teacher in the suggested by, and any teacher they have who's assigned them work, they can click on their name, and then all the skills will be right there for that student, which makes it really, really easy for them to identify what to work on. It also makes this a little less overwhelming for students. When multiple teachers are signing work in IXL, that list of work to do can be really cumbersome. So if they just click on their teacher's name, that makes that list a lot smaller.